Hello, I'm Brandy Agerbeck of LooseTooth.com, and today I'd like to tell you about a couple lessons I learned from the lab. LooseTooth.com lab is a 3-day immersion into graphic facilitation and visual thinking. I invite a small group of people to join me in downtown Chicago, and I've created an environment full of really great materials to work with, a very simple process that allows for an emergent agenda. We use my lifetime of drawing experience, my 15 years of graphic facilitation experience, and my unique experience from a fine arts background and understanding the importance of constructive criticism. So we have an environment where people can experiment and do work, and we can give each other really constructive, specific feedback to help us all do better work. So we had the first lab, and I'm glad to say that the experiment was a great success, and I look forward to giving the next lab. So here's a couple little things I learned. One thing I learned was about the group size. So the lab was a new offering, and definitely an investment of both time and money. We had 4 slots open for this first lab. We didn't have a very long window of registration time, and I had 4 people register. So 10 slots and 4 people registered. Incredibly happy with the 4 people who joined me. A really wonderful variety of people coming from different backgrounds, different levels of experience, different drawing styles and challenges. So really a huge thank you to Nicola and Aaron and Kathleen and Kelly for joining me. Could not be happier with the group we had. And several times over the course of those 3 days, I kept on thinking, like, thank goodness I didn't get 10 people. Like, it was the really great thing about our small group size was that we could all have one conversation together. And we all got to know each other enough that we understood each other's challenges. So whenever we were giving feedback, we could really tailor it to each person. And I was really thankful I was able to give very direct feedback and constructive criticism to each person. And I really saw wonderful progress in everyone's work. So lesson number 1 was to reduce the lab's size from 10 people down to 6 people, so that each person can feel they're part of that one conversation, and each person can get their own constructive feedback to strengthen their work. Lesson number 2 was about this contentious issue around drawing styles and camps. We had these conversations about in the field there are a few different camps of drawing styles, and some organizations have sort of branded themselves around those styles. So what does that mean? Do you want to align with one of these camps or do your own thing? And what happens when somebody steals your style? I know that I do come from a fine arts background, and originality and authenticity are values I hold very dearly, very strongly. So when I see somebody copy my style, it makes me livid. But unfortunately not something I can control. Now, I'm unique in the fact that I came into this work with an established drawing style, and I understand that there's not a lot of us who do, and that copying somebody's work is an important step into developing your own style. So I do whatever I can to help people get to their own style quickly, to establish something that's unique to their own hand. So during the course of the lab, Aaron, who also comes from a fine arts background, said, hey, I always found it really useful to copy the masters. So would you be okay if you mapped something and I just copied it? And I thought, well, it's an interesting experiment. Let's see what happens. So we put up a short video, and I mapped on one wall, and 3 folks mapped and copied exactly what I was doing. While the 4th person wanted to listen, she hit the pause and play button on the video. So first they copied me, but also I would stop the video and explain what my thought process was. So for instance, I'd ask to pause and say, okay, now the speaker's been talking about A, B, and C, but now they're talking about X. I don't know if that's a diversion or the new direction, so I'm just going to tuck that away for a minute and hold on to that. That kind of example. Now, thankfully, this copying exercise was a huge success. People said they got a lot out of it. It was especially interesting to sort of get in the mind of the graphic facilitator and hear exactly what my thought processes were. From my perspective, it was exhausting. It was incredibly challenging to go from 100% on this channel of mapping to 100% on this channel of explaining and breaking down the work itself. So to be on those 2 channels and then have a verbal debrief afterwards, it was crazy. But I also understood that it was an incredibly valuable thing for the group to do. So my second lesson was, this is a great experiment to replicate in future labs. I just personally have to manage it that we get some kind of break or lunch or something between the copying part and the debrief part. So little lesson learned there. So that's just a little sneak peek into what happened in the first lab. If you go to loosetooth.com/lab, you'll find all sorts of details and the registration information. It is my intention to have 2 labs a year, to have them in Januaries and Augusts. And the idea is, if you are self-employed, those are times we tend to have less client work, so you're less likely to say no to paying work to then pay the money to do this professional development. And if you're employed, those tend to be times where a lot of people have holidays or take vacations, so your office probably isn't at 100% productivity. Might be an easier time to take a break and come do a lab. So yes, I know Chicago is either going to be very hot or very cold, but that's the thinking behind it. So the next lab will be offered in January, and we'll have 6 slots. So I hope you'll join me, and join me in the opportunity to experiment. So again, I'm Brandy Agerbeck of loosetooth.com, and thank you so much for watching.